I didn't cry at the funeral, not when the house went quiet, not when the twins stopped asking me to play. I cried the first time I heard a heartbeat in a white room, my boys on either side, their fingers sticky from vending machine candy. They looked up at me and said almost together, "He's already our brother, Dad." And that one sentence cracked something open I'd been welding shut for years. I'm Richard Hale, Harbor Ridge, coastal New England. Big cedar house people point at from the marina like it's a postcard. From the outside, it looks impressive. Inside, after Naomi died, it felt like a museum. The curators forgot to close polished floors, framed smiles, a kind of heavy silence you learn to walk around. Noah and Liam turned 5 and went quiet in a way that gets misread if you're not paying attention. Nannies came and went in 2-week intervals like tide tables. I told myself the boys were difficult. Truth is, they were sad. And I was the one who taught the house how to be cold. You know what I mean? I ran to work like it was a bunker, left before sunrise, came back after bedtime, fired off emails at red lights, like that made me noble. The staff saw what I refused to see. The housekeeper, Mrs. Doyle, spine straight as a ruler, ran the schedule like a train. Our driver, Sam, kind eyes in the rear view. The gardener, Pete, whistled off key and planted perennials because they promised to return. They'd catch the twins at the window waiting for a car that always came home but never really arrived. Yeah, that happened. Then one morning the intercom buzzed, and Mrs. Doyle said in that voice that sounds like a verdict, "Sir, the new nanny is here." I didn't look up. Another one, I thought, another 2 weeks. When I finally glanced toward the hallway, there she was, hand on a rounded belly like it was a compass. Grace. Not a bright pep talker, not a fixer, just steady. I asked for a resume. She said I sit on the floor well, and I don't mind silence. The boys don't have to like me today. It was the first honest job interview I'd heard in months. Day 1, she didn't sell fun or bribe behavior. She sat cross-legged on the rug, opened a picture book, turned a page with no commentary, just breathing in a room that had forgotten how. The twins hovered at the edges, small deer at the tree line. An hour later, a cup of juice detonated across the kitchen tile. I waited for the scold. Grace just said, "That was dramatic. Let's do the cleanup even better than the spill, Captain." She handed Noah a towel, gave Liam the second one, turned it into a game, didn't make the mess a moral failure. Something uncoiled I didn't know I'd been holding. Not everyone applauded. Mrs. Doyle whispered to me like a human memo. "Children need structure, Mr. Hale. Ms. Grace is letting them run like cats." Grace rinsed a bowl and, without looking up, said, "Structure is good. So is safety. Safe kids don't need to test fences. They know where home is." The air moved. No one flinched. I said nothing, partly because I didn't trust the sound of my own voice. The small weather reports started arriving. Sam mentioned fewer tears at bedtime, like he was noting a traffic pattern. Pete brought me a paper boat, said the boys wanted to know if my desk pond had room for a fleet, pointed at my orchid bowl like it was a harbor. Mrs. Doyle, on day 6, delivered pancakes, with this tight smile that meant her worldview had taken a small dent. They cracked the eggs without shells, she said, which for her bordered on poetry. Grace worked in circles, not lines. She built a crooked pillow fort and called it architecture with personality. She let the boys measure flour like it was treasure. When they spilled, they cleaned. When they hurt, they checked. When they needed space, they said so. Simple rules, soft voice. She didn't push their joy. She made room for it to return. Me, I lurked. Doorways, stair landings, those reflective windows where you can spy on your own family like a stranger. I'd watch them on the library floor behind the portrait wall the twins discovered before I did, all 3 tracing their hands on a big piece of paper. "What are we making?" Liam asked. "A map," she said, "so our hands remember the way back when our heads get lost." The sentence went through me like rain and gravel at the same time. I leaned against a painting of a lighthouse and pretended my eyes were tired, not wet. There were friction points. Grief makes you suspicious of ease. My sister-in-law Celeste walked in with a scarf like a blade and said, "The optics of a pregnant nanny are unwise, Richard. You should consider a residential academy." She aimed her chin at Grace. "And you, dear, surely have your own child to prepare for." Grace met it level. "Caring for one child looks a lot like caring for three," she said. "Love doesn't run out when you pour it." Celeste blinked, filed it away, changed the subject to legacy, like people are stock portfolios. At work, a board member named Grant offered to find me a buffer. "If home is a distraction, we can place a temporary COO while you recalibrate." "Interference is for football," I said. "I need to show up for pancakes." He laughed like I was adorable. I wasn't joking. The turn came small. Rain stitched the windows. Grace's feet were swollen. She lowered herself onto the sofa, like a woman who knew her limits and honored them, handed the twins a handful of washable markers, and said, "Belly art, only no stickers, boundary respected." They drew suns with faces, stars with smiles, the kind of crooked joy you can't buy in a store. Then they whispered and spelled slowly, carefully, the word brother across her shirt. I walked in, stopped dead, forgot how to swallow. Grace took my hand and placed it on the curve just as a tiny foot pressed back like a hello. "He's saying hi," Noah whispered, "as if we were already a team." I cried. Not the dignified kind, the kind that tells the truth on you. After that, I started choosing presence over performance. Snack assembly lines. Bedtime stories invented on the fly. Once upon a time I tried There Was a Baby Whale Who Couldn't Sing. "Dad, whales sing fine," Liam said. "This one had stage fright," I said. Grace smiled over a stack of folded pajamas. "Good save, coach." We laughed easy. The house began to sound different, not loud exactly, just alive. Doubt didn't disappear, it just stopped running the show. Some mornings the ghost of the old schedule rattled my pocket like spare change. I'd drift back toward the office, stare at the screen, remember Naomi in a green sweater. Too much oatmeal, a joke she almost finished. Grace never gave me a speech. In the quiet click of dishes, she said, "Deserve is the wrong word for love. You're here. That counts." It landed. It stayed. Then the hospital day. Routine check. St. Basil's long hallway, soft shoes, the twins holding my hands like we were crossing a street. Gel wand, that rhythm erupts fast and steady, not music I've paid for, but the best song I've heard. The boys stared at the screen, then at Grace, then at me. "He's already our brother Dad," they said, not for show, just as a fact. I went to my knees and said, "Yes. Yes, he is." That was the twist, the moment the wall between us finally stopped pretending it was useful. The rest looked ordinary, if you didn't know the before. A nursery with drawings taped too low and too crooked. All of us scrawled in wobbly letters. Long breakfasts, shorter board meetings. Celeste delivered a book about elite preschools and left holding a sleeping newborn she swore she wouldn't touch. Grant raised an eyebrow at my calendar and got Tuesdays only for anything important. "Mondays are pancakes," I said, and meant it. When the baby came, it wasn't cinematic, just right. We took him home and the house exhaled. Bottle caps on mantels, socks hiding in planters, a fort still up on a Wednesday, because no one wanted to take it down. I started waking at night to stand in the doorway and watch my boys sleep in a tangle on the rug, while Grace rocked the baby, and it didn't feel like chaos. It felt like proof. I wasn't trying to be a perfect father anymore. I was their father. Period. You know what I mean? So that's my win, if you need to call it one. Not a promotion. Not a plaque. A place where laughter and mess mean we're still here, still trying, still choosing one another. I'm not cured of anything. Some days grief taps my shoulder and asks if I remember. Some days I still look at the door when my phone pings. But when I drift, Noah will hand me a paper plane and say, "We fly it together, right?" And Liam will touch my arm and ask, "We still a team?" And the answer is always yes. Now let me leave you with something to argue about, because I know you will, and maybe you should. Was it wrong to hire a pregnant nanny into a house already balancing sadness money and 2 5-year-olds who needed a mother they couldn't have? Did I blur a line by letting love in before I wrote a plan about it? Is family something you inherit by blood, or something you build at a kitchen table where everyone is welcome, if they stay? And when a father cries in front of his kids, is that weakness, or the first honest strength they've ever seen? Tell me what you think. Tell me what you've lived. Drop a comment. Push back if you need to share this with someone who is trying to come back to their life, and hit subscribe if this gave you even a flicker of hope. I'll be reading probably with a baby asleep on my chest and pancake batter on my sleeve.